But what you were saying is probably, I would say, my number one thing that is so hard for me in running my own business.
Hey guys, Kat here from Standing Stone Kennels, and welcome back to our new podcast that is just the Standing Stone podcast. If you followed along before, you'd know we had a Yawa podcast, which stood for You Ask, We Answer, but we're changing things up a little bit now because we want to incorporate some awesome guests and share their stories with you. Ethan and I will still be doing some podcasts together on this new Standing Stone podcast when we have things we want to share with you, anything that really strikes our fancy, but primarily dog training, hunting stories, things like that. But these podcasts will incorporate some of the other factors that are part of running a business and running a dog training business, which is where some of our guests come from. So if you are just finding Standing Stone Kennels and the Standing Stone podcast, thank you for tuning in and listening. But if you know of us, you may also know we have an Instagram channel, Facebook, as well as our YouTube channel where we have dog training videos, hunting videos, as well as we have an online store with all of our dog training supplies that we use and recommend. It's actually things we use and recommend, not just full of a bunch of stuff you don't need. And then if you actually need help training your dog, we have our Patreon community, which allows us to help you train your dog from home, answer questions if you have them. And that's at patreon.com/standingstonekennels. So today on our episode, I have Kelsi Troilo with me. Kelsi is an amazing photographer, and we were so lucky to find her when we were having our first baby, Aiden. I needed a maternity photographer, as well as all of the newborn pictures that we wanted to capture and those really fun milestones. And now we are continuing to work with her with our second baby, Cade, and just love everything about working with her. She's so great with the boys. She gets awesome smiles out of them, and I don't know how she gets them to smile at the same time, but she always makes us look good, and we love displaying those wonderful pictures in our home. And we actually are working towards getting our milestones for Cade's 1-year pictures set up, so I'm excited about that. So, Kelsi, if you would also like to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your business, your family, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty about the mom-boss balance that we're going to talk about today.
All right. Hi, Kat. I'm Kelsi Troilo. Like she said, I started a business about 3.5, 4 years ago. It's called Love Bug Photography. I was a neonatal ICU nurse for like 8 years, I think, before I stopped being a nurse, and I kind of pursued this passion of mine. And I used to call all the little babies that I work with my little love bugs. So when it came time to find a name for our business, we kind of just thought that that was fitting. So I specialize pretty much just in newborn maternity, and then I will continue to take pictures of my sweet little newborn families as they get bigger. But my passion really lies in those tiny little babies. So I have a studio now in downtown Wichita, and it's kind of my happy place, my getaway. When I need to just zone out for my children, I just go down there, and it's kind of my little zen place. It's beautiful, it's quiet, has gorgeous natural light, and it's kind of set up how I like everything with my little boho chic style. And anyways, it's really been a blessing to be able to have this studio space and to be running my own business now. If someone would have asked me 8 years ago if I would be number one, a photographer, and number two, own my own business, I would have said absolutely not. There's no way in the world. I'm not cut out for that. So it's kind of just cool how God has kind of intertwined different people in my path, and that's where I'm at now. So I married my
That's
husband,
awesome.
Nick, and we have 2 little boys, Jet and Sullivan. So just like you guys, eventually you will get there when they get into that naughty ornery stage as they get a little bit older. But
I think we're getting there with
I don't
Aiden a little bit.
know.
He's becoming his own little independent person, I tell you what.
He is so, so, so sweet. And when I see him, he seems to just be like the kid that follows the directions and listens to the rules. And then I go home and my kids are all over the place. My oldest is 6. And I do tell people, and him, which I should probably stop saying this, but I tell him, you're my favorite kid on planet Earth. 6 has just been a game changer. He's so much fun ever since going to kindergarten. I don't know what it is, but just like the independence that came with it, he is a blast. That's Jet. And then we have a 3-year-old who's a tornado. Sully Mack is his
Which
name.
that's where Aiden's at. It's that 3-year-old stage of busy, fearless, into everything, wanting to help with everything, and starting to test some of those directions we give him and trying his own way sometimes.
Yeah, and which you have to give him a little bit of leeway and say, okay, yeah, you can try it. But when we have allowed you to try it and now we're 15 minutes late for running out the door for where we need to be, it's time that mom buckles you in your car seat. So yeah, it's finding that balance of like, you can be independent, but yet you still have to listen to what I'm saying. So, yeah.
Because we do have a timeline we try and stick to so that we're not late for everything.
That's right. We try. That's what I tell everybody. Everybody that walks in for newborn pictures, I'm like, look, you arrived. You are here. It's maybe 5 minutes past the time you're here, but in mom time, that's early.
So where can people find you? You said you have a studio in Wichita, but online, where can people find your galleries and your social media places?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just lovebugphotography.com.
It is my lovebugphotography.com. And then I am pretty active on Instagram, and it's the same thing, my.lovebug.photography. So I'm on Facebook as well.
I love following your stories on Instagram because we do have a lot in common in the sense that we have 2 little boys, we have our own businesses that we're running and trying to juggle, and we also are understanding the importance of making time for us and keeping ourselves healthy and happy just makes us better moms. So that's a big part of why I wanted to have you on our podcast to share some of that with people because it is a balancing act and constantly trying to figure out that work-life balance. And I thought you seem to have your stuff together pretty well. We all have our days, right, lady? But I wanted to share some of your insights and tidbits to help other moms out there that might be trying to start their own business or figure out how to find the balance. Even if they're not starting a business and they just have, a career that they're focusing on, it's still important to find that balance somehow.
Absolutely.
So you were saying that you were a neonatal nurse before starting your newborn photography. So, and then you have a family. So which happened first? Obviously the neonatal nurse, then photography, but when did you get married and when did the kiddos join the clan and then the photography all come together?
Sure. I was in nursing school when I met my husband, Nick, and we got married. So our oldest Labradoodle, who's our very first baby and the best dog on planet Earth, he is 13 now. So I had gotten him right as I had met Nick. So he's kind of been our baby together since the very beginning. And he was so, so, so spoiled for so many years. And I look back now and I'm like, we have another doodle now who's 2, but just the life he lived before kids. And he's so tolerant of my children. But man, that dog, he's the real MVP of our family. Let's say that. He's been through absolutely everything from, the heartbreaks to the happiness to bringing kids home to they just roll all over the top of him. Sorry, off topic. Anyways, he was my first baby.
No, that's fine.
My one true love. My husband and I both own our own businesses. So he is a dentist out in Rose Hill and he takes Bentley to work with him every day. And he is like the therapy dog out there at their office. And he has gotten so many kids in the dental chair. It's really, really sweet. But anyways, so we got married and then my husband got into dental school at Creighton. So we moved to Omaha for 4 years. And it was while we were in Omaha that I had my oldest son, Jet. And I loved nursing. I worked nights. It really just worked out for our family. Like Nick was, out, he would school and then eventually turned to work during the day and I would work at night. And when we moved back to Kansas, we had help with our family. And so we didn't even have to use daycare at that point in time. But it kind of got to the point where I was like, all right, I don't want to work, 3 weekends a month. I don't want to work all the holidays. I don't want to spend 15 hours at the hospital. People think you work a 7 to 7. It's not 7 to 7. By the time you leave and by the time you get home, it's like a 15-hour day. So I kind of wanted to start venturing into something maybe that wasn't requiring that much of me, so I could be home more with my kids. So that led to photography, which I would have never put that on my radar. Sure, I took like a photography class in high school, but that was about it. And after my friends started having babies, they were like, "Hey, can you take that, big camera you got over there and take some family pictures for us?" And so that's literally how it started. It was, one family here, one family there, and I kind of was like, "Okay, if I'm going to do this, like maybe I should do some education." So I just taught myself how to do it all. And by the time it was before Sullivan was born, so Jet was probably like 2, I would say. I was working at the hospital part time, and then I was trying to do this photography thing, and it was well over full time altogether. And so my husband and I sat down and we were like, all right, is this something you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know. It's so nerve wracking.
So scary, right?
It is. It is.
That leap.
You're going out on a limb. And I felt a bit of guilt because my parents had helped me, with my college tuition, and I had gone to school to be this nurse. And here I am, like, what I thought I'd be doing for my whole life, investing in that. And now I'm just going to, like, set it aside for something I'm going to self-teach myself how to do. I don't know about that. So when I first started, it was kind of like all hands on deck. There was so many behind the scenes aspects of owning my own business that I had no idea about.
And I don't think people talk about that all the time. It's just super glamorized. You own your own business. You set your own schedule. Must be nice. But there is a lot more that goes into running your own business, and not just doing what you love, which is handling the newborn babies and getting to snuggle them and take their pictures, but running the business of scheduling. Absolutely. And the communication and, I mean, even just the paperwork and the taxes and all the other garbage that we have to deal with.
The not fun stuff. That's
yeah,
what
the
I tell
non-fun
everybody.
Stuff, right.
I'm like, your invoice will come to you, I promise, at some point. Like, this is what I love to do, take your pictures. But the other half, like, not so much. So
yeah.
It still to this day is a work in progress. So I'll talk to you a little bit more about that when we talk about like setting some goals and boundaries, because that's probably been my biggest struggle with owning my own business. But it was definitely what I like hoped and prayed for, stepping out of the hospital and like just being able to like set my own hours and work as much as I wanted to or not as much as I wanted to kind of like find that happy place and that balance, which I will say now, 4 years in, I think I found it. But it's taken a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to kind of get where I would say that I am today. But
we
that being said,
basically met you at the very beginning.
Yes.
Then, if it's been 4 years, because obviously Aiden's almost 3.5, and you took our maternity photos. So add another, 9 months to that. And well, actually, the funny story about our maternity photos was literally took the maternity photos on a Friday and then texted Kelsi on Sunday and said, when do we need to schedule those newborn pictures? She's like, oh, after the baby. I'm like, well, he's here. And she's like, what? I don't even have your newborn or your maternity photos edited yet. I need to get on that. And I was like, yeah, he came 3 weeks early. So we're kind of not going according to plan. But that would have been at the very beginning of your kind of start, I would say.
That was probably, I guess when I'm saying start, that was when I left my like actual, paying job at the hospital to start this venture on my own. It was probably like a year before that I was like doing things for other people. But you guys were definitely at the beginning of me starting my business. And I look back at some of the pictures at the beginning and I'm like, I hope people love these because, your work evolves as you get better.
Well, and that's how it should be. I mean, if you're not growing and you're not learning and you're not changing and adapting, then what are you doing, right? And the same with
Exactly.
dog training. We're constantly learning new methods, trying new things with different dogs, and even just the way that we help educate people and try and give examples and explain things adapts and changes, and we modify things. And we look back at some of our original videos that we've shot to help train people to train their dogs from home, and it's like those cringy videos where you're like, I should do a reaction video to this because it's awful and I don't know why people watched this, but we appreciate the support from people that stuck with us for this long. But that's what it is. And I will tell you, I love our maternity photos and the newborn photos with Aiden, and the fact that we were able to incorporate a couple of our dogs during that process too, which you were very accommodating for. So I appreciate that. But
Always and forever.
so we love them.
Yes, that, I mean, I would 100% relate to that. Just you saying that, like, people continue to come back to you. Like, there is no better feeling than knowing that somebody saw something in you. Same thing, exact same thing with your business, that they had the response that they wanted from your education videos or your training session or whatever it is. And to have a repeat client coming back, or like a word of mouth referral. Like, there is no better thing than that. Like, we don't do a lot of advertising for my business. About, I would say 90% of my business is a word of mouth referral or a past client coming back. And to me, like, that says it all. Like, you're clearly doing something right if people are talking about you and your business is still
and
thriving.
you're definitely staying busy.
Yeah.
Because I learned my lesson the hard way, unfortunately, with Aiden's, how old was he? He would have been 2.
Yeah,
I
that's
was
right.
like, I'll talk to Kelsi about getting on her schedule for his 2-year milestone pictures. And this was in September. So I was like, I'm planning ahead. This is like 3 months in advance. And she was like, I'm so sorry. I'm completely booked. And I understand and 100% respect that, because the same thing happens for us. You know, people call, they want to get their dog in for training last minute, and we're booked. And we have to say no so that we can maintain the quality of the training and the care of the dogs. Just like you have to say no because you're like, I have only so many hours that I can photographer in the do photography. Photographer?
Yeah, I kind of liked
Shoot
that. The way you said
photos.
that, I was like, oh, I think I might use that.
Photographer in the day.
Yeah.
And then the editing time, and then also that balance with family. So I was like, I will never make that mistake again. So I'm text Kelsi as soon as we were pregnant. I was like, I'm going to need more maternity photos and newborn and 6-month and year and family photos. So I'm like, book me for everything, because I didn't want to miss out on working with her, because people that have experience, people that are really great at what they do, and then you go to someone that maybe isn't as great, it's like, wow, that was a little bit of a letdown. We didn't get hardly any great smiles out of Aiden, where he's a smiley, giggly little boy, but he was so serious in the pictures. And we got a few, but I was like, he can't stop giggling when we're with Kelsi. So I was like, okay, we're not going to miss out on that opportunity for Cade's other milestones and things like that in the future. But so when you find somebody good, like Kelsi or whoever you're working with, you need to hold on. You need to stick with them. And also understand that you've grown in the time that we've known you. So you become more popular and you're harder to get into and book out easily. So I was really excited for you and proud that you had, gotten to that level of, I'm booked out, 6 months in advance. And not everyone recognizes that, but that is a huge sign of success.
It's very flattering, and to hear you say those things, obviously, it makes me feel, over the moon. I mean, I can literally hear Aiden's laugh and giggle as you're sitting there talking about it. I mean, it really just is the best. But what you were saying is probably, I would say, my number one thing that is so hard for me in running my own business, and that's just setting boundaries. Because like you were saying, like, when you're booked, yeah, sure, I can say, yeah, I can take one more. Yeah, I can take one more. Yeah, I can take one more. But something's got to give somewhere. So if I'm saying yes over here, over and over and over and over and over again to work,
what are you
who
saying
suffers?
no to over here?
Yeah, my family suffers. And we saw that, probably it would have been, which this makes me very sad to say, but it would have been about the first year of Sullivan's life. I was really diving in. I really wanted a studio. I was trying to to get my clientele base where I wanted it to be so that that could be a reality for us. And it is now. And I don't regret that part of it, but I do regret a little bit of how much I said yes to other people and I said no to my family. And finding that balance is insanely hard. And I am a person of yes. If somebody asks me something, I don't even think I think before I say yes. I mean, that's just who I am. And so to be able to tell somebody, I am so sorry, no, especially like you, Kat, people that I know and people that I have a relationship with, to be able to say, no, I'm so sorry. Like I have already hit that max that I promised myself I wouldn't do anymore so that I could still have some sort of a work-life balance. It's hard. Nobody wants to do it. Not only are
It's
you
awful.
financially turning away money, but you're somebody that wants you, you're telling them no, so they're going to go potentially find somebody else that like had they have had a better experience otherwise might continue to do business with somebody else, which that's okay. Like I've come to know now that it's okay. Like I have a base of where I want it to be, but when you're in those beginning stages of trying to
Growing
find,
stages.
yeah, find who you are and where you want your business to be and finding the clientele that you want, it's really, really hard to say no, but you have to find a way to put a boundary on that so that you don't suffer, your family doesn't suffer, whoever else is, whatever else that you're putting time into doesn't suffer because it will.
Right. And
There's
like you
only so
said,
much of you.
something's going to give that balance.
Yeah.
You're saying yes over here, which
Yeah.
means you're saying no somewhere else. And if that's your family or not your family, and then you're saying no to yourself. And when you're not the best version of you, that means you're not the best version of the mom you want to be because you're tired and you're stressed and you're short-tempered, or you're not the best business owner. So that means something slips through the cracks. You forget to get back to an email, or you're like, well, I just don't have the time to work through these dogs today. Or you say, something else gives, or you're short-tempered and impatient with a client that you're trying to get, babies to lay still or, stay asleep. And if you're anxious, stressed, or whatever, that's going to feed into all aspects of things. And so it is important to find that balance.
And what exactly what you're saying, you lose the joy right there. I mean, you
Right.
literally just said it. Like it is no longer coming from a place of joy. And that then reflects onto your clients and people don't want to come back for that. And I think one of the biggest things is we live in a world of like instant gratification right now. Like I can pick up my phone and I can text somebody or I can email somebody and I expect a response like that. And so as a business owner, like I had to, I'm like, you know what? I don't work on the weekends. I promised myself I'd stop working on the weekend. So if somebody texts me, great, fine and dandy. I'll get back to you on Monday when I'm at my computer or Tuesday when I'm at my computer. And people understand that, but you have to lay it out to them. Like, I'm sorry I won't take your pictures on Saturday because I don't work on Saturday. I work during the week so that I can be with my babies on Saturday. I'm not missing their soccer game.
And it has been a struggle for us to get to that point too. We used to be instant replies to emails, instant replies to messages, texts, things like that, all day, all night. There were no business hours. And we got to the point where we're like, we need to shut it off at some point in time, whether that's on the weekend or the evenings when we're spending time, family time, dinner time, things like that. Because otherwise your kids, all they do is see you glued to your phone. And I got to the point where I would pick up my phone to even just take a cute video of Aiden. He's like, Mom, don't work. Because he would say, what are you doing, Mom? What are you doing? And I was on my phone and I would almost always tell him I'm working. And then I would pick my phone up to actually do something to capture a moment. And he thought I was working. And that was a huge wake up call to us of understanding that we do need to create those boundaries and have some of that no power, which is difficult because not only from a financial standpoint, but also from, I don't want to disappoint people that have reached out to us or they've tried somewhere else and they've been let down and they're like, I really need your help. And, we started our training business because we love helping people and we love helping dogs, and to tell them no it's such a hard word to say, but I feel that if you're open and transparent to people, they understand and respect that. And if they don't, they're probably not the type of clients you truly want to work with. And obviously, there's no shutting it off 100% on the weekends because we're caring for live animals, but we still try and carve out time, just like our employees. You know, they're not working 7 days a week, obviously. They're working their 5 days, whether that's a rotation where their weekend is a Monday, Tuesday, or a Thursday, Friday is their weekend. And you would be surprised, a lot of our employees like having their weekends off, not on the weekend, because that's when everyone else has time off. And so they go and do things where it's not as busy with their families.
Way less busy.
But that is a struggle that we've reached. And there was a time where it was like, we've got to grind. We have to work so hard to build the name, build the brand, build our client base, so that we can support our family, our employees and stuff. But it got to a point where we're like, okay, enough is enough in certain areas. And we have to put that cap to maintain the quality that we have worked so hard to, produce and be known for. So there is a limit at some point that you have to say, this is all that I can do, and this is all that I can give. And if you'd like to get your dog in for training, we're taking deposits, 6 months from now. And people will either say,
people
okay,
are going to hop on that,
or they're going to say, I need to find someone else. And we've come to understand that we're not the only trainers out there, and we don't have enough spots to train every single dog that calls us. And we may be out of some people's price range, which is understandable as well. And there are enough other trainers out there to go around. So it's not that I have to gain every person's business, because if I don't, they don't get their dog trained. There are other options for them, just like there are, like you said, other photographers that they could build great relationships with as well. So
I feel 100, as you were saying that, I'm like, I mean, I tell clients that too. I'm like, you know what? I've built this brand for what I want it to be, because this is what brings me joy. And those are the people that, we're a good fit for. But that doesn't mean that it's totally fine if we're not a good fit. Like, there is, 1,000 other people out there doing something similar to what I'm doing, but that might be more of what someone else is searching for. So you have to, as a business owner, be okay knowing that not everybody is for you and you're not for everybody.
And that's 100% the case for us as well. So I was going to touch on how your business has evolved, because like I was mentioning, so when we started working with you with maternity photos and with Aiden, that was right basically when you had started doing this for yourself full time and not just on the side and in combination with nursing. And we did newborn pictures in your house, in your basement, in the small studio.
Itty bitty, teeny tiny, like
we're
tiny.
Yeah, we were like sweating in there because we have to keep the babies warm enough. And but it was also
it was so tiny. But you know what? It was what worked at that time in my life. And to know that I didn't have to pay rent or to pay bills on my business, and that I could really just put everything I was making right back into it, so that eventually someday I could be where I wanted. It's hard when you have your eyes set on this goal so far ahead of you. But if you don't have something to work towards, then you're never going to get there, and you're never going to keep pushing yourself. So it was such a good time for me to just sit back and say, okay, Kelsi, you don't have all this money to just throw at something. You need to make this work and prove to yourself that you can do this before you go out and, start your own, where I have now my studio space and things like that, where it doesn't matter. Like, I have a lease to pay every month. I have bills to pay every month. All of these other things now that, 3 years ago, none of that was a thing. It was like, oh, if I shoot a couple newborns this month, great, fine and dandy. And now here I am like, okay, how many do I want to take to, make the bills? How many sessions do I want to do this month to make a profit and to sit happily where I am? So I think it's kind of too, like, how do your goals and your ambitions change? Because like 3 years ago, I would have said, all I want is just like a space to call my own that's not in my house, that people don't have to come and stomp through my house. And I have to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I live here with 2 children and a husband and 2 dogs, and it's a disaster, but come to my itty bitty teeny tiny basement room and let me take your pictures. So that was all humbling. And now to look back at that, I'm like, wow, okay, like I can pat myself on the back. Like I hit that goal. And, now my goals look very, very, very different from what they did, 3 years ago.
But that is
So,
something that I don't think a lot of people that start understand. They see where you're at now, or they see where our business has gotten to, and they think that that's where it started. And it 100% did not for both of us. And it started with what we could afford and what we had the space for and what we could do. And then we proved to ourselves that we were capable of more. And we proved to people that we were capable of more, so that we had more people that wanted us to train their dogs, which then we needed a different and better facility for. And that's the same with where you started, and you gained experience, right? You just said, like, you look back at some of the stuff that, were your first pictures and you go, wow, look how far I've come. Not look how terrible those were, but look how far I've come. Of course, people now expect maybe a studio experience. And this same with us.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. But I think like even the common denominator behind what you're saying and what I'm saying, like, is that you really have to truly have a passion or a joy for what you're doing. Because if you start and say, with social media the way it is now, everybody just has a little bit of like an imposter syndrome, like, oh, I want to do what they're doing, or oh, I want to do what they're doing. But you're exactly right. Nobody has seen the walk that we've walked to get to where we are now, to kind of like sit back and say, okay, wow, like all of that hard work really paid off. But did you see all those times that we were over there, in tears, wondering if this was really going to come to fruition, or whatever that
the
had.
struggle was.
You have, yes, but there would have been no struggle if we weren't passionate about what we were doing. And so I think a lot of people now are just trying to make something become famous on social media, or make a lot of money, or something like that. But if your true passion behind whatever you're doing isn't there, it's gonna falter. It's not going to become what you want it to be, because you're copying somebody else, or you're not doing what is bringing you joy in your heart. And I tell a lot of people this, like when we were talking about, loving ourselves and self-love. And I always tell people, I'm like, how can you pour into other people if you're pouring out of a cup that's not full itself? Like, if I'm not taking care of myself, or I'm not loving what I'm doing, then what I'm offering to other people is basically just willy-nilly. It's not anything that I care about. I'm like, oh yeah, bring me in a couple $100. Okay, great. That's not what this is about. This is about something that we love, and that we hope will, bring people joy when they receive their dog back from you completely trained, receive their gallery of photographs, whatever it is. You're still working at that base level, that what we're doing is serving others, loving others, and then providing them a service that they are so overwhelmed and happy about, overwhelmingly happy about, that they're wanting to talk about you, and they're telling other people about you. And then they're coming back to you, and they can feel that same exact joy that your first client left with, that your 100th client leaves with.
Yeah, that you're not tapping yourself out, and you've pushed to the point where it is no longer a passion, and it's no longer enjoyable. There are times where it still is. This is work. I need to make time for some of this, because, like you said, sending out those invoices, not your favorite part of the job, but it is part of the job. So there are those aspects of things. And I agree. I think that social media and I think it's evolving. I think it has really been in the recent past about glamorizing everything. Wow, look at how wonderful my life is. Look at how happy we are and how many things we have, or whatever. Like, that image has been portrayed, and it does give people a false sense of what we have accomplished or what we have done. I feel that there are some people that are trying to take social media and make it more real recently, especially like sharing the struggle, sharing the journey. It isn't always, sunshine and rainbows. There are, blood, sweat, and tears that go into the business and the family at times. I saw a meme or a post that somebody posted that said, it must be nice, or isn't she lucky? and then it crossed it out.
Mm.
Didn't she work hard? And that's so true. We didn't get here just by poof, we're here. It took those steps to get there. And, with your studio, that's one of those steps that you really worked for. And I've also seen that you do not only the photography in your studio, but you're doing classes there now too, helping share the education and sharing your experience with other photographers or aspiring photographers, which is awesome. What does that all entail?
Yeah. And it's funny that you transitioned from that, because without social media, I would have never begun this like educator role, if you will, that I'm playing now. When I was a nurse, they would ask people to be a preceptor, which meant that like you would teach like new nurses coming into your unit kind of the ropes and the here's how we do things here, and they would be with you for 3 or 4 weeks until they were like off and good to go on their own. And I did one of those, and I went to my boss and I was like, nope, absolutely not. I'm not meant to be a teacher. This is not what I want to do. Don't you dare ever give me another student or anybody. Like, I don't want to teach anybody. I want to do it my way, and I want to do it myself. And so when this became a thing that people were asking me like, okay, I love what you're doing. Can you teach me what you're doing? I was like, no, I'm not meant to be a teacher. I don't educate people. That's not my jam. But it all came from a place of like, this is my art. This is what I'm passionate about and what I love. So I can teach you that. Like, I'm not teaching you, the rules and regulations and exactly how we do things to take care of a very sick newborn baby, because if you falter from that, really bad things happen. And so I didn't like that like pressure on myself. But this is really teaching just something that I love. And there's so many different avenues that you can go down, but to be able to share like, hey, here's what's worked for me and here's what didn't work for me, and to be able to share that with really like-minded people like myself, it's empowering, but it also is just such a wonderful feeling to sit down with people who are all in the same boat as you, and to be able to help each other out is really what we're doing. And I know you guys do a lot of that too with your educational videos, and just it's once again just pouring into other people is what I think makes me so happy.
Agreed. And
That's
I
like
didn't
my love language is like loving others.
Yeah, I didn't know about like the training that you might have done as a nurse, but that's very interesting. We have a lot more parallels than I even knew, because I went to school to be a high school science teacher. And I stopped at my student teaching semester and went, this is not for me. I can't teach high schoolers science. Like, please no, get me out of here. I'm just going to graduate with a general studies degree. I'm done with school. Be done. And now that's what I'm basically doing, is I'm teaching and educating people on how to train their dogs, but it's something that we love and we're passionate about. And I love getting those emails or messages that are clients saying, whether it's a dog we've trained or a dog that we've helped the person train from home, either way, those aha moments for them, or those moments where they're like, my dog walked on leash and that is all because of you and your easy lead, or my dog recalls now, or any number of things that just has made their lives easier, their dog's lives happier. And those are those moments. And I know that that's the kind of thing that makes you feel so good about what you're doing and helping people, that keeps you wanting to do more.
Absolutely. Words of affirmation. That is what I need to hear. I'm like, yes. Like, it's insane what one little message from a client will just completely turn around your day. Somebody sent me a quote. She sent me like a little message today. I even wrote it down because I wanted to. She said, if you see something beautiful in others, speak it. And I was like, oh my gosh, is that not? Can you imagine how much happier this world would be if we were all just continually complimenting and telling others like, hey, I really love what you're doing here. Or, just pouring into others. What everybody would be so much happier. There would not be all this hate
like
that goes around.
Sincerely
Yes.
Sincerely telling people how great they're doing and, pouring that love out there instead of talking about the garbage and the
Absolutely.
negativity in the world. There's enough of that happens without us having to dwell on it and bring it up constantly. It's so much more empowering and brightens your day. Like if I get an email, because that's what I do first thing in the morning, open my emails, drink my coffee, respond, and we get emails from people that aren't happy with whatever is going on with their dog or with potty training, or they didn't like a video we did or something. And if you constantly are reading those messages and those comments on YouTube, you start to be like, well, why are we even doing this if everyone hates it, right? But it's like the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and those negative comments, people, I don't know why, feel so much more comfortable sharing that than reaching out and saying, you know what, this really helped me. And there's still enough people that reach out and tell you that it feels good and it keeps you going. But I've done that myself. I'm like, this person did an amazing job. I need to take the time, instead of just going, oh, that was great, that was really nice. I appreciated that in my head, and speak it, like you said, and share that so that the person gets that affirmation and maybe makes them not have a crummy rest of their day.
Yeah, I mean, it turns your day completely around. And as a business owner, like the last thing that you want to hear is something that you've poured your everything into, somebody else doesn't like it. Or they have a different opinion about what you should be doing or something you should be doing better, instead of just kind of highlighting on the things that you actually are doing great. It's a mindset shift.
And I think that we can all benefit from just more positivity in life and less negativity.
I would agree.
So speaking of positivity and successes, so I want to ask you, what do you feel has made you as successful as you are? Is there one specific thing? Is there a handful of things?
So you had sent me like a couple questions, and I kind of like that one I sat and pondered, because
those are so hard to answer about yourself.
It is so hard, because if somebody told me that like I was successful, I feel like you kind of have to feel it in your inner being for it to really like sink in. And I think success means so many different things to so many different people. Because the reason I feel like I've made it and I've done it is within the past 6 months, I would say I really can finally say, like, I feel successful in what I'm doing. I feel like I've found my groove. I feel like I've found my happy spot. Um, but what I feel like has made me successful is like I can just sit here and say that like I love what I'm doing every day. I'm profitable. I get to hang out with the most amazing people at my job. But not only that, is I have found finally a balance of being able to be with my babies and work that is just working so well for our family. Like that's all I wanted.
I'm so jealous
of you
all
I wanted out of all of this. And it has just over the last few months. So if you would have asked me that question 1 year ago today, I probably would have lost my mind, broke down in tears, and told you I wanted to quit. Last year, I was so overwhelmed. I was so overworked. I had overbooked myself. I was up every single night till 2, 3 in the morning trying to get editing done, getting them out to clients. And I was burned out. Anybody that does something creatively, artistically, really even just owns your own business, you feel burnout. And when you feel burnout, there's nobody, when you're a single person business, there's nobody else to lean on. It's you or it's nobody. So I really had to sit down and reevaluate everything and kind of see what I wanted to do differently. And I thankfully have an amazing spouse who is probably my biggest support person through all of this, and said, yeah, drop your full-time job, start this business that's going to put us into debt. Like, yeah, just do that. That sounds like great idea. But he's been so helpful through all of that. And I think it was really, truly just us sitting down and saying like, all right, Nick, okay, I can't do this anymore like this. I physically cannot continue going on. When I picked up my fifth grader or my kindergartner from kindergarten, this would have been in the fall. So in the heart of like busy season, shooting outside in the evenings, I was like, all right, buddy, I got to drop you off at Gigi's because I'm going to work. And he looked at me and he was like, with tears streaming down his face, he doesn't cry. He was like, Mommy, why do you have to go to work? You've been at work all day long. I just want to play with you. And now you're leaving to go to work again. And I was like, you know what, Kelsi? What are you doing? You quit your full time job to work more? Like, what? When I was a nurse, I could like leave work at work. But when you own your business, there's no leaving work at work. There's nowhere to leave the work. The work is right here with you constantly. And so I really, really had to sit down and say, like, if this is what I want, then what is my idea of success? What is it that I want? And so we really just reevaluated absolutely everything about what I was doing and found a schedule that worked for us. And I can say now, a year later, like I could not be more really truly proud of myself that I have started saying no, that I have set boundaries, and that we are where we are, that I can be like, yeah, hey, do you want to come be a guest on my podcast for an hour? Sure, I've got an hour in my day because I'm not so overbooked and I can do more things that bring me joy. So I really think it's what you define kind of like your success. And that's really all in just like, what was your goal? Did you hit that goal? Because who doesn't feel successful once they've reached their goal and they can set a new one that's even higher and better than what they had set, you know, 3 years before?
That is incredibly insightful. And I'm glad that you shared a little bit of that success journey, because I think that anybody that is successful or trying to be successful with their business has hit that point at some point in time where something's got to give. They're at their breaking point. And I think that the longer you're in business for yourself, the more that may happen, especially when there are different changes in your life. So Ethan and I have hit those points a couple times with our business. We started our business out in Northwest Kansas, childless, child-free, whatever you want to say, but without employees. And we did that pretty consistently with a little bit of help from an employee here and an employee there, but pretty minimal additional help for like 5 years. And with dogs, it's a 24/7 job. I mean, they can't sleep in and be like, no, I don't need fed. I don't need walked. Take the day off. I don't need trained. No big deal. And so it was Ethan and I. And luckily, I did have that spouse that was an awesome support member team, but also my business partner. So, you know, I need a break from the dogs today. Can you just please do the let outs? I need my mental space. And, you know, he could help with that. But it was to that point where we're like, this isn't sustainable. So we need to change. We need to make a change. If something's not working, you need to figure out what the problem is and make a change, whether that's saying no or saying, I don't edit after certain times of the day, or you book your time and say, I don't edit after business hours. And so I book time during my day for editing, because that seemed to definitely be up till 2 a.m. is insane doing that. And so what we found at that point was we moved. We actually moved to where we're at now, which is just outside of Wichita. And we were the biggest factor of that move was finding consistent help with the kennel and having employees that we could train in, and we could expect them and rely on them to help care for the dogs in the evening. So when we were done training for the day, I didn't also have to go out, feed dogs, let them out 3 more times, and go to bed at 10 o'clock and get back up at 5:30 and be back out in the kennel. On top of the training and caring for dogs, then just running a business, emails, communication, trying to, at that time, work on a little bit of social media stuff, because that was kind of in that realm of when that was becoming popular as a form of becoming known. So we made that choice of, we need to move. We need to get somewhere where we can get the help that we need, or we need to change and we need to be done with dogs because it can't go on. And then we've been here for, well, we moved in 2016, so almost 6 years now here. And Aiden is 3.5 years old. And I would say that was the next point, you know, maybe not right when he was born, but very close, where it was like, okay, I didn't know what it truly was like to be a mom and to have a family that I also wanted to devote time to, because our business was our baby, if you will. That's what we spent our additional free time thinking and brainstorming and creating content and videos and training and raising puppies and dogs, because that's part of the business. That's what we devoted our free time to. Well, a baby takes up every ounce of free time and more that you didn't know you needed. And so that was a point where we're like, okay, we need to make another change. And we tried to become a little more efficient with our time, and it's become a balance. Childcare has become a thing of necessity, where we thought we could do it without daycare or without a nanny or something. And now that we have two of them, we really realize that it's not doable. How do you shoot a video when you both need to be either in the video or running the camera, and you have two children running around? Well, Cade's not quite running yet, but
yeah, yeah, crawling around.
Crawling around, which is almost worse. They get into everything.
And everything's in their mouth.
Yes.
But I mean, parenting and owning your own business is like having another baby. I mean, it's just like trying to take care of another child would be. And it throws so much more responsibility onto your plate of how do you juggle all of that.
Yeah. And not have something be sacrificed. And I don't want our business and the quality of training and the quality of care at the kennel to be sacrificed. I don't want the time with our boys and our babies to be sacrificed. It needs to be balanced. And so that's where we're like, okay, childcare is really important, but finding the right childcare. So we're in that flux again of finding a good fit for our boys. And hopefully we found something that will work, but it's not easy.
I think that a lot of people go through exactly what you're talking about, because we did the exact same thing. When I left the hospital, I was like, great, we're not going to need anybody to help us with childcare. Like, I'll just work when Nick's home. Like we'll kind of like flip and flop. And who took the fall during that? My poor kids. Because you're either on your phone, or I'm like, okay, I'm going to pull my computer out and I'm going to try to work for a little bit while I shove them in front of the TV.
Distracted multitasking time.
Yes.
Then nothing's getting your full attention.
That is not quality time with them.
100%.
That is not at all.
And
Go ahead.
No, I found that and fell into the trap of, I'll just check emails while they're playing. Well, then as soon as you start giving this your focus, something falls apart here, whether Aiden knocked Cade over and now he's crying, or Aiden realized mommy was distracted and went into the other room and has the scissors and he's, cutting something he shouldn't, or, any number of things because of the distraction, and they recognize it. Just like he said, don't work anymore, Mom, when I held my phone. They're smart, they're observant, they know, and they recognize it being neglected. And I'm calling it neglect because I feel that way. I feel like I'm not giving them enough time and attention, and I feel guilty and bad about it. And we tried that flip-flop. Well, Ethan, you get the mornings to get dogs trained and worked, and then I'll be with the boys. And then when you're done with training by noonish, I'll get the afternoon to try and shoot some podcasts or, register litters or update the newsletter or anything that I needed to get done. And you get worn really thin. There's a lot of late nights, a lot of early mornings to fill in the cracks. But believe me, you really can't call customers and give them updates at 4:30 in the morning about their dog. They don't appreciate
it. Doesn't work out.
So, those early mornings and late nights are limited of the use that you can use it for. You're also not probably shooting a training video in the pitch black outside. So, we're like, okay, back on the bandwagon of trying to find childcare again and seeing if we can make that work. And Wichita, I'm, hashtag jealous of the opportunities for childcare. We're looking at
there's so many.
There's options, whereas we're in the middle of nowhere. We're not even in town. So, we literally will have to leave the place of work to drive the kids to daycare, to come home to work, to drive to pick the daycare kids up, to come back, to our home. So that for us, for the longest time, it was hard to make that make sense, but it's truly the only option at this point for us to get the time to devote to the business so that we can truly shut it off when it's time for family time. So it's hard.
And I mean, our kids they're little sponges. They are watching absolutely everything that we're doing. And when you're overwhelmed and you have so much going on, what you're pouring into them is not anything that I want them to soak up and start repeating.
Right.
And that's where you have to actually think about taking care of yourself, which for business owners typically means some type of childcare to say like, hey, which is what's happened to us recently, over this past year, like I know that I have Sullivan and Jet somebody for them from 8:45 to 3:45. And then I know that once that time comes that I pick them up, I'm not touching my work. Like I get them and they get my full attention from 4 o'clock until bedtime. And those hours that we spend together now are so much more fruitful and wonderful for both of us because we're all hanging out and playing together and they're not constantly like, Mommy, put your phone down, put your phone down. Can you close your laptop? Can we not watch another 18 shows? They would probably never say that, but
yeah, they would be
my
like,
brain
I'd
is
watch
saying
YouTube
like,
all day long. Yeah. Aiden would be there
yeah,
right there with them.
I'm going to get you off of that.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, as hard as it is to think that like somebody else is watching my kid, I would much rather know, like with a healthy mind, mom mind, that somebody poured into them for some hours so that I could get done what I needed to. And now I can have my time as a mom. And it's not just going to be like a half
Divided time. That's what
I
I
call
call it.
half-assed little
Yeah.
thing here.
Exactly.
I am giving you my undivided attention because I know that I've got these 4 hours with you, and these babies don't keep. Like, I would give anything to go back and have just a few more days when Sullivan was a baby and I was pouring everything I knew into my business instead of pouring it into him.
Yes.
And that's something you're just going to always feel your own mom guilt about. But,
I feel the same way because there's no maternity leave. I mean, if I'm taking maternity leave, that means the business is being shut off for 2 months. Well, that's not possible. Yeah. So I felt the same way, like a little jealous of watching other moms get to spend those, undivided, focused on children time with their babies. And I didn't. And I do feel a little bit of that mom guilt, which I have to come to terms with, but then understand that now I'm putting in place a plan that's going to be good for the family, good for my kids, good for myself and my sanity so that I can be the best mom that I can be in those hours I do get them during the day and on the weekends, so that we can be great business owners and dog trainers. And it is very eye-opening when you do have consistent childcare, how much more quality the time you do get together is, and how we make time to do exciting adventures. Like we went to Tanganyika a couple weekends now. Yes. They love it. And going to a playground. Aiden is in a playground phase. He loves slides. So any playground we drive by, whether it's in somebody's backyard or the park, he's like, can we go to the playground? And I'm like, well, we will put it on our plans for the weekend because, if we're driving and running errands, we don't have time now, but we are going to make time for that, and those times then become quality. Like Ethan and him went down to the pond and fished the other night and caught like 5 fish, which those are things we wouldn't have made time for in the past. We would have been like, okay, you are going to come with us while we do this, and make it about multitasking and running the business and being a parent.
Yeah, we have. It's so funny to hear you say, like, we're making a plan to do that because every night when we tuck the boys in, I always ask, especially our oldest, like, what was your favorite part of today? And it will always be like something that I thought didn't matter to them at all. So like a lot of times he'll be like, remember when we were in the car? And because we have a lot of, like, we're doing a lot of drop off. We're very go, go, go all the time people. And so we spend a lot of time in the car. But we try to make that fun by either listening to, a Spotify book, or I have little brain quests and like flashcards that they do. And half the time he says his favorite part was like a game we played in the car. And I'm like, that took no time, no thinking. It was just us being together and like making just a sweet little memory that I had no idea I was doing. But it's funny how you ask them like what their favorite part of the day is, and half the time I'm like, oh my gosh, I completely forgot we even did that. Or like that was not even a blip in my mind.
Yeah, and knowing that that was important to them and it wasn't something that had necessarily been important to you makes you realize, okay, it doesn't have to be this big production, this big thing that we did, or a game that I got them, or a toy that I got them. It can be just the time, the quality time of engaging and playing that game, or answering questions, or singing along to some music that they, got mom's attention, got dad's attention for in that amount of time that they wanted. So
Absolutely.
I know that we both are working on that work-life balance. And I'm so happy for you that I don't want to say found it, because like we talked about, life evolves, business evolves, things may change, when both boys are in school and they're in multiple activities. Because I know you were talking about t-ball. Well, is Sullivan doing t-ball yet?
He's in soccer, but that's a work in progress.
But when they're both involved with more things and you guys are going other directions, things may have to give and take or change a little bit then, or, you may take fewer new clients on and only do repeat clients. And we've talked about that from our business as things change and evolve. Maybe we would only take puppy buyers, dogs in for training, or repeat clients, things like that, so that we can still maintain the relationships that have got us to the point that we're at now, but not sacrifice and say yes to everything. So I'm very happy that you have at this point found your success point and that really good balance. That's a good flow for you guys. I'm fingers crossed that we're getting really close to that for ourselves. We're trying really dang hard, if nothing else. So, and it's getting there, and it's a work in progress. But I think that it's important that you shared where you were at a year ago and where you're at now. And I feel like we've been in very similar places. And so I'm just looking at that year mark now and going, in a year, we'll be where Kelsi's at in a year. So that would be amazing.
You got to set your sights on what it is. And that just really, truly was my goal. And I know that you guys will find it. You guys are an incredible team. And you have built, an incredible team of employees as well. So I have no doubt that in a year, you guys are going to be where you want to be and beyond. So.
Well, thank you. And I hope that we will be. You said you're very happy where you're at. Do you have any additional goals or things that you're kind of like gradually reaching for or on your radar? I mean, you've got a very creative mind, obviously. So I can't imagine you don't have anything that you're thinking about, even if it's just, maybe not for your business. Maybe it's a goal or a future plan for yourself or your family.
That's so funny that you say that. Like, my business, I feel like, is exactly where I want it to be right now. And so as a creative, holding on to that and not getting bored in what you're doing is really hard for us creative minded people. So it'll just be to, within my business, continue to love what I'm doing. But more than anything, my goals right now are with parenting. Like, it is a full-time job. And there's nothing more than that I want to do than to raise. I tell everybody this, and I'm like, it sounds so simple, but I want to raise kind humans. Like, watching Jet come home from kindergarten and telling me what some of the kids are saying, I'm like, okay, this is not fine. That, like, my number one goal right now just sits in, instilling in them kindness, so that what they're seeing in our house, which is not always kindness, because there's still a lot of things that are happening in our house, and I yell way more than I ever want to. And so a lot of what I'm working on is inner deep right here, to get to be to a place where I feel like what I'm pouring out into my boys is going to then walk out with them into their everyday life. Because, I mean, that's really all we want, right? Is to be happy. And
our children to be happy and kind and well-rounded. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you have two boys, but when you have two boys, not everything is kind touches and nice words coming out of your mouth. And I mean, it's wrestling, it's punching, it's saying unkind things. I'm not your best friend. All kinds of things like that, that where I'm at personally right now is I finally feel like my business is where I want it to be, which takes so much pressure off of me to now be able to really pour into my family. Had a lot of guilt about, am I spending too much time working? Am I not spending enough time at home? Am I meant to be a stay-at-home mom? I'm not meant to be a stay-at-home mom. I will tell you that. Spring break
I have
solidified
that.
Yes, I am not. I am so much of a better mom if I can have some time to pour into myself, a little bit of self-love, whether that means, waking up and having my quiet time in the morning, cup of coffee. I'm kind of like a workout person. You and I have talked about that. Like I need to get out the sweat and I need to get out the bad feelings that are going on, and then I can kind of move along. But I think it's finding what works for you, really and truly, and what your body needs, because like we talked about before, I can't pour into other people when I've got a glass that's like this full. I want it to be
Yeah.
this full and overflowing. So and all of that to say that then gets poured into my business and my clients, and that's all I want, is them to walk away with a happy experience. But I also need to work on me so that I can be giving them like the best me. So it's not really business related. My goals right now
But
are
it
kind of
is
like
in a
sitting here
roundabout
at
way.
home. Yeah, it does. It all ties back around. But yeah, it's just working on my mom heart, and not feeling guilty about things that I'm doing or not doing. And I guess the best word for it would be content. Really just feeling content with the gifts that God has given to me that I can share with others, and to be accepting of like the gifts that he's given to other people that they're, sharing with me. Um, and like I said, that just goes tenfold into our kiddos, who then are, our legacy and our future generations. So
Well,
that
I
was
love
a
how you
roundabout
said
way.
that. Like, no, that's why I was like, it might not be your like,
Yeah.
I want to open Love Bug Photography 2.0 or something, right?
Yeah,
It might just be
It's not
focusing
that.
on the other aspects of life that, again, comes full circle to making you a better business owner, more creative time, and to be able to share that with other people in your classes and stuff. So it all comes full circle, and it is all about finding that balance with family, with your business, with your self-love. And so I really like how you tied that all up. Thank you so much for being on this podcast with me. It was great to get to know you on a little bit more level, other than just following you on Instagram and then our short times where we, have gotten together for family photos. And we need to just like make some self-love time and get a girls' night together and make that work out.
It's
hopefully
gonna
this
happen.
summer. It sounds like you've got things in place to make that happen, and I'm very close, so that would be amazing. So again, thank you so much for being on this show with me tonight. I hope our listeners enjoyed listening in on how it can be done and how success isn't necessarily measured the same for everyone. Kelsi, is there anything you'd like to add here at the end? Anything else to remind people to check you out? Because your photos are amazing, and I love having them on my wall. So sharing those with the world, I think, is something that you should do.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I don't have much more to say. I'm not much about like self-promoting, other than just I hope that wherever you are, whatever you're doing, that you found something inspiring about this. If you're starting a business, if you're a mom, if you're in a walk of life where you just feel overwhelmed, I think we can just really all benefit from pouring into each other. On my photographer plug, I will just say that no matter who your photographer is, print your photos, hang them up. Just like Kat said, there is no better gift than seeing your art displayed on people's walls, and to walk in and see photographs. It's just, your kids will look at them, your friends will come in, and it's just a place of a memory, like that you can talk about.
I have to say that.
Time.
That just made me think of something.
Yes.
So we have the pictures on our wall of our pictures with Kate at 6 months, which also coincide very well with the fact that Aiden had turned 3, because they're like 6 months apart exactly. And we took, family pictures at the same time. And there was a playground there. Do you remember the playground? That we told Aiden.
It was just not my best idea.
No, so
Not
it was
my best
actually
idea.
It actually worked out well, because it was the perfect carrot for Aiden to be like, you take good pictures, you smile, you behave, you listen. We get to go play on the playground afterwards. And he tells me, especially because we're on that playground kick right now, he says, I want to go back to that place and play on the playground where we took pictures. So he remembers that memory, that experience. There is no pictures of a playground in the background of our pictures. Believe me, it's all gorgeous scenery and everything, but he remembers that memory and that moment when we created those pictures. And And that's because we have them hanging on the wall, and he sees them every day and knows how important our children are, and they are to us, and we are proud of them. But that was a memory that stuck with him, 6 months later. So I just wanted to share that with you.
That gives me goosebumps. As you can't see, but I'm like rubbing my goosebumps away. There's really no better gift. I tell people that like I'm here just to kind of capture your life as it is. I'm going to try to get your kids to smile, and all I want is for us to have a good time. But to hear that somebody is still talking about, a memory that we made together means that so much more to me, that it's not just we're coming for family pictures. Like, this is a relationship that we've built here. And I'm so happy to hear that your kiddos are still talking about that, and that they had such a wonderful experience, that it was fun for them.
And now we have to go back to that park so that we can play on the playground. We have promised now, because we're like, we will go back because I know how to get there. It's in Wichita somewhere. I may have to text Kelsi for the directions.
I would get everybody that lives in Wichita will know it's Eastboro Park, but that park holds memories in my heart. My grandma and grandpa used to take me to that same park when I was a baby. So that's like one of my favorite places to take pictures, just because of the memories I have there, which are now
continuing on. It's a legacy you've created as well. So we will be back and playing on that playground very soon. So thank you again for being on the show. Yes, thank you to all of our fans and listeners, and for all of your support through all our many avenues of content. We have our social media on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube channels, and then again, like I mentioned, our Standing Stone Supply dog training store, and then Patreon, of course. Basically, it's a way that we help train people to train their dogs from home, just like Kelsi has, her classes where she helps people learn to be better photographers and get involved in that. So until next time, guys, I'm Kat the dog trainer, and we'll see you in the next video.